I'm gonna pull up my outline real quick. So I just ran to grab some coffee. It's like my third coffee of the day, which
All
again,
right.
probably not
Making me proud.
probably not super healthy, but you know what, dude? You only live once. All right. You ready?
I'm excited.
Let's do it.
What's up, UX fam? How's your mom and them? Welcome to another episode of Beyond UX Design. I'm Jeremy. If you're new here, welcome to the show. I am super stoked to have you. Before we jump into the normal stuff today, I want to give a shout out to Chris for leaving some awesome feedback for the Beyond UX Design book, Master Your Craft Beyond Pixels and Prototypes. And don't forget, if you get the book from beyonduxdesign.com/book and you leave some honest feedback, you'll get a chance to win a shout on the show just like this one. So head on over to beyonduxdesign.com/book and use the code LISTENER to get 10% off your copy today. This week's episode is brought to you by the Interaction Design Foundation, or IXDF, as the cool kids call it. From the fundamentals to advanced topics, IXDF's courses and UX masterclasses are designed to push you further. You can take advantage of their top-rated collection of courses and connect with designers from around the world in their global network. Learn from beginner to advanced levels and earn certificates recognized by UX recruiters worldwide. So are you ready to join IXDF and take your UX career to new heights? Get 25% off a yearly membership. No promo code needed. Just head on over to beyonduxdesign.com/IXDF and the discount code will be applied automatically. So if you've been thinking about signing up for IXDF, now is your opportunity to get 3 months for free. Don't wait. With IXDF, you're not just learning, you're becoming part of something bigger. And if you haven't done it already, please consider subscribing to the show wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you are a regular here and you feel like you're getting something out of the show, I would really appreciate you leaving a 5-star review. That'll help me out so much more than you can imagine. And as always, thanks so much to Chris, Siraquan, Stacy, Radu, Megan, Andrew, John, Mark, and Kevin for all their support. And if you want to join those fine folks and help keep the show independent and ad-free, you can become a patron for as little as $3 a month. That's less than $1 an episode. And if you do that, you'll get some sweet, sweet perks for your support. For more information on how you can support the show and help more people find out about what we're doing here, make sure to check out beyonduxdesign.com/support. And of course, if you think the show is worth sharing, then I would love it if you told some friends. So we as UX designers, we're always talking about taking care of users and solving problems for users and empathy for users and all that stuff. But if you're ever on an airplane, you hear the flight attendants, they say, put your mask on, put your face mask on before you put your kid's mask on. You got to take care of yourself before you take care of users. And how often do we as UX designers, we work all night, we work all day, we don't take a break, we end up not taking care of ourselves, we skip meals, we don't exercise, whatever, and we end up missing things. We end up not doing our jobs right. And what happens? Users end up suffering. Case in point, before the show, I ran downstairs to get some coffee. I ran back upstairs. I'm huffing and puffing. I'm like, Jason, sorry, man. I'm out of breath. I had to take a minute to recoup before we started recording. And I'll be honest, I don't exercise like I should for an old man. But that's a perfect example of how I'm not taking care of myself like I should be. So I got my buddy Jason on today. We're going to talk all about taking care of yourself mentally, physically, spiritually. So I've got Jason Ogle on the show. If you've ever done a Google search for the top UX podcasts to listen to, there's a very good chance User Defenders was right up there at the very top of the list. So you've probably heard my man Jason before, and I am so excited, so lucky, so blessed to have Jason joined the show today. I feel like this is crazy, man. I've been thinking about having Jason coming on the show for years, kind of dreaming about it, listening to his show. I finally got him on Beyond UX. I am so excited to have him on. So Jason is a highly self-aware design leader with nearly 30 years of experience leading and crafting digital experiences that solve complex problems, delight the users, and exceed business outcomes. And as a veteran HCI practitioner, he is passionate about designing thoughtful, innovative, elegant user interfaces and interactions that reduce friction and make life better for users. And along with being comfortable with ambiguity, he's a solutionist who's borderline obsessed with solving problems and among the few who sweats the small stuff, always has, always will. As a personal growth mindset enthusiast, he's convinced that being a great designer begins and ends with being a great human. He's also the founder, host, and producer of the User Defenders podcast, creator of the heuristic evaluation template, and he has a personal relationship with the creator of the universe. Jason, welcome to Beyond UX Design. I am so incredibly excited and humbled and stoked to have you here talking to us today, man. How's it going?
Hey, Jeremy. Thanks so much for having me, brother. This is really cool. It's an honor to be here. I see you making waves out there with your show and on LinkedIn and adding a lot of value. And I really respect you for that, brother. I really do. So thanks for having this time with me.
Right on, man. Well, I appreciate that. Thank you, dude. Well, the feeling is definitely mutual, Jason. So I am so excited for today. Everybody listen out there. Jason and I, we had a chance to talk a couple of weeks ago. And I was like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm actually talking to the one and only Jason Ogle. So I was kind of gushing a little bit. But anyway, I really appreciate it, man. Thanks so much for coming on. So you had some really interesting things to say the last time we talked. And so I really want to dig into this idea today of, taking care of yourself before you take care of users. UX, it's a very altruistic thing that we got going on here, but we've got to take care of us first before we do all that other stuff, right? So I know I read that bio, but for everybody listening, tell everybody out there a little bit about you and all that stuff, man.
Yeah, absolutely. I have, let's see, where do I begin? I'll try to give
the beginning, the very beginning. We got plenty of time.
So I was born and so honestly, like as far as like technology goes, I got to give a huge shout out to my late great pop for bringing computers into our home. You know how they say it doesn't take a rocket scientist? My dad literally was a rocket scientist.
Oh, really?
And
dude.
Yes. And he started in missiles in the 50s.
Really?
And then he was actually on every Apollo manned moon mission.
Really? Wow, dude.
And all 135 space shuttle launches. And then he retired.
Oh, wow.
So my dad's a legend. I lost him in 2020. Not indirectly COVID related. He couldn't see his heart doctor.
Oh no.
So yeah, it was just a bummer. All that to say, he brought computers into our home and I'm so thankful for that. When I was a kid and the wonder and the awe, the cause and effect. I found my first computing book. It came with our Commodore Amiga. We had an Apple IIe before that. And then my dad noticed the Commodore was starting to take over, especially with visual, with graphics. It was incredible at the time. And it came with an A-Basic book. It taught you how to do A-Basic code. And I tried my first command was making Amiga talk. And I copied what I saw in the book and then I actually made her talk and I was like in awe. I was like, I couldn't believe this cause and effect relationship, and then, always being a comic book nerd, I always love Wolverine is my favorite. If you can't tell by the facial hair.
I love it, dude.
I always loved like art too. So when I discovered the World Wide Web, in mid 90s, thanks to America Online, I found out that I could make my own web page and then I could use code. I learned HTML nearly overnight. It was a lot more simple then.
Yes, it was. Well before CSS3.
Every web page was responsive, kids, when we first got the interwebs.
Yeah, it's amazing how that works.
Yeah, just screen to screen text. It was amazing. Really difficult to read, but hey, it scaled. Anyway, when I discovered the beautiful marriage of art and design, which I later became known to me as design and technology, I was hooked. Like I immediately was like, this is what I want to do the rest of my life. And it took me 2 years for that to happen. But, 1999, that dream became a reality. And, here I am now talking to you.
Yeah, I remember going back. It must have been 92, 94. I can't remember. But we had one of the kids in our class. He was this huge, nerd back in the day. Everybody always made fun of this poor kid. Actually, this dude now, oh man, he's awesome. I'll come back full circle this story in a second. But he wanted to get the school on the internet, and he made this presentation to the students and the teachers about getting on AOL and setting up a computer in the library so we could go on AOL and all this stuff. And this young kid, man, it must have been like 4th, 5th grade at the time. I can't remember. Anyway, super smart kid. But this dude was awesome back in the day. He used to get picked on because he was the only one who knew how to use a computer. He got picked on for knowing how to use a computer. And it's crazy how times change. But now this dude, he's a visual effects artist. He's got his own company now, I think, but he worked for Bad Robot for a while, working on all kinds of stuff with J.J. Abrams and all that. But anyway, back in the day, back in the 90s going online, oh, look at all this stuff. Oh man, it was so cool. You've got mail. We were talking before the show started about how slow our internet is, and now we're over here talking about 56K dial-up AOL, man.
Oh man, it's funny. I've got a US Robotics modem staring right back at me right here. I picked it up from an old workplace. They were going to throw it out.
Oh man, put that thing up on display up on your bookshelf. That's awesome.
And I was like, I got to have that. That's a relic. That's where it all started for me. So I've got this US Robotics, and it still works. It still powers on, and that's where it all began, my friend, for me.
So the funny thing about design is, at a high level, it's very altruistic, right? I mean, if you talk to any UX designer and you ask, why'd you get into this? You're going to hear things like, I like to solve problems. I like to help people. I like to make a user's day better and all that stuff. But, it's a very altruistic thing for the most part, most UX designers. And often though, we're burning the midnight oil. We never take a break. We're eating unhealthy, all that stuff. And you had a really great point a couple weeks ago when we talked about, it's very much like being on an airplane. You got to put your mask on before you put your kids' mask on. So talk to me a little bit about that idea and how that's helped sort of shape your worldview, your sort of ethos when it comes to design.
Yeah, absolutely. That right there was an epiphany for me when I started the show. I had just started, with User Defenders, I had just started my personal growth journey, literally the same year. It was 2015. And what I mean by that is, I'm nearly 50 years old now. And, this was like 7, 8 years ago. And I'll be honest with you, and it's kind of embarrassing to admit, I didn't really care about myself that much, the many years previously. And thankfully, like, I was able to meet my wife and be able to get married and have kids and all that. But I just was never really, like, you can ask my wife, like, I was a pretty grumpy guy. Like, through a lot of those years, I was grumpy. I was always tired. I just was not really pleasant to be around, to be truthful. And one of the things that I kind of realized a little bit later is, looking back at my lifestyle and my diet, it all made sense. Like, I was eating like crap. Like, I love milkshakes, brother. Like, I love it. It's a huge problem for me.
Oh man, it's the same way.
So I was drinking, malts, double thick, chocolate malts all the time. And, and then, I gained a lot of weight, and again, I didn't have great sleep habits. I never exercised. There's a scripture in the Bible that says bodily exercise profits little. Like, I based my life on that teaching. But then it goes on to talk about spiritual exercise being much more important, and certainly can get into that as well, because that is part of this. We, our spiritual health is important too.
Yeah, man, absolutely.
Especially in the day and age in which we now find ourselves. The world is a challenging place. Anyway, what I, kind of basically what ended up happening to me is I heard a podcast, and it was all about a morning routine. And I'll give credit to the podcast. It was Pat Flynn's podcast, and I can't remember the exact episode, but it was about how he tried Hal Elrod's Miracle Morning routine. And my boss actually at the time recommended the episode to me because I was just starting to listen on my long commute, and it was a Friday. I remember I listened to the episode on the way home from work. I was so inspired that I said, this is what's been missing in my life. Like, on the drive home, like, it clicked for me. I was like, I have been waking up for others, that, my employer, my kids, nothing wrong with that. And you have kids, especially when they're small, you got to wake up and help them survive. But, my point is that it was always about, my schedule was always dictated by others. And they always say, if you don't block your calendar, somebody else will.
Yeah,
That's
so
just the
true, man.
reality. And so like what I realize is like this is what's been missing in my life. I just wake up only in enough time to get ready for work and leave. And you know, and then you know, I'm irritable. I'm again, my diet's horrible. I'm not exercising and I'm really reactive, you know.
Grabbing a protein bar or something, chocolate bar or something as you're running out the door. Yeah, man.
Krispy Kremes, Starbucks, like cupcake in a cup, right? I mean, it's all we live in a society that is engineered to adversely impact our health. That's the truth. So I ended up waking up at 5 o'clock in the morning on that Monday, and I'm not kidding, Jeremy. It felt like Christmas morning. It felt like Christmas morning. It was dark, but it was quiet. It was so peaceful. My kids were sleeping. My wife was sleeping. Like everybody was sleeping except me. And I was able to just like get up and just like and feel alive. Like I felt more alive. I hadn't even done anything yet, but just that first accomplishment of fighting the urge to just stay in bed in the warm, under the warm covers and to get out of bed, like that released some neurochemicals, dopamine. Absolutely. Because it's the first win of the day. Imagine getting your first win of the day before the sun is even up. And I mean, that alone will kind of get you that momentum that you need in order to start putting your oxygen mask on first. So for me, what that looked like was getting up, doing a devotional, perhaps reading a little bit. And even like, after I started the podcast, it was like getting an idea knocked out. It's crazy. Like I built my whole e-commerce store in like a matter of a week of just taking a half hour one day of that whole business week. And I had an e-commerce store on my podcast website. And it was like, I never made an e-commerce website. I never done, God bless WooCommerce. But like, I mean, that's the thing. Like you set the rules, you set the rhythm of what your day looks like. And here's the most important part of this. You fill your cup because like I've always said, you cannot pour an empty cup into another. It's impossible. So how can
love
we,
that, man. Yeah.
as designers, again, as you kind of touched on, and we talked about this in our pre-interview, how can we as designers expect to care not only just about people we cross paths with on the street or in the supermarket? How can we expect to care about people that we have never met, nor will we ever possibly ever meet, that we are creating something for that could actually be a matter of life and death, depending on what industry and what product you're working on? How can we expect to care about these people?
Yeah, man, absolutely.
If we don't even care about ourselves enough to fill our cup, to be able to actually pour into an empty cup.
And that's such an important thing to think about too. I think there's a lot of people out there that, I hate to diminish tech companies, but like TikTok and stuff like Twitter, social media apps, like, okay, but then you hear about, stuff like the 737 MAX, that software glitch, where planes actually crashed because there was a bug, right? And then I think there was like that bank that had some terrible interface and it cost them like almost $1 billion or some ridiculous amount because some user transferred the wrong amount of money or they transferred money to the wrong account or something like that. This kind of thing. But software has real world implications very often. And this is something I don't think a lot of people really think about. And I love that idea of you can't pour an empty cup into somebody else's cup. I love that. I think that's something that, designers especially, we feel very like, hey, we're helping people or we're saving the world. Like how many times we heard design is going to save the world? And how does design save the world if we as designers aren't saving ourselves first, right? I think that's such an incredible insight. I love that. I'm curious. I don't really know much about the Miracle Morning. What is that? Do you mind digging into that a little bit? I'm not super familiar with that.
Yeah, absolutely. So Hal Elrod, he's a personal growth influencer. Quite a story, actually. I think Pat Flynn actually funded a documentary. It was like a biopic about his life because he's been through some really crazy stuff, like nearly died a couple times, like once in a really bad car accident. That's what inspired him to kind of like do this like personal growth thing, and Miracle Morning. And then he recently was diagnosed with cancer like several years ago. Like we're talking terminal, like it was nearly terminal diagnoses. And I haven't checked in on him in a while, but I think he's fighting. I mean, obviously he's fighting hard, and I think he may have beat it. But anyway, this is something that he came up with, and it's really, he has an acronym for it. It's called SAVERS. I don't remember exactly what those mean right now, but I'm sure your listeners can dig in and check it out. Yeah, Google that. But it's really all about just like waking up and again, like getting the good inputs so you can get the good outputs, right? Because we know garbage in, garbage out, good input, good output, those kinds of things. So yeah, it was really life-changing for me. And again, part of this is exercise. You touched on that a little bit, and in a joking way, like I relate with you, man. I live in the Rocky Mountains, and I've been here for over a decade. I still get winded going up one flight of stairs.
Oh God, I can imagine. Yeah, man.
It's just, and I'm on the treadmill every day. Like it's just one of those funny things, like for me, it's the altitude. But really the point is that, we need to be taking care of our bodies, like we only get one. Right? Like, unless you believe in reincarnation, we can have a discussion about that another time. I don't think that's going to happen. But anyway, you get one body, one chance, one life to live here. And really, the Bible describes it as a temple too, like it's a spiritual temple. And, we ought to really take care of this vehicle that is carrying our spirit around. Right. And so one of those important aspects is exercise. And, our bodies, this is the funny thing. This is part of the beauty and the curse of technology. The beauty is it's a lot easier to do things than it used to be. The curse is that we have to exert a lot less energy to accomplish those things, right? Like our ancestors, they didn't have chiropractic wasn't even a big deal until the modern age. We didn't need chiropractors until the Industrial Revolution. Think about that. Right? Why? Because our ancestors were constantly doing things, physical things that their life depended upon. Right? They didn't have the ease that we have now. And I think the Wall-E movie, or those people, they're just sitting in those beach chairs and they're just doing nothing, and they're just it's kind of the future, I think, that we are heading toward.
Seems like it
in a weird way, and I want to caveat this conversation too. Like, I understand, like this is not about fat shaming or anything like that. Like, this is just talking about health. I know there are some folks who have significant challenges and really they have a difficult time trying to implement some of the things that we're talking about today. So I just want to be sensitive to that. And this is not about that. Okay. And I also do want to be sensitive to folks with mobility challenges as well. Like, there's things that I'm going to probably talk about, and we'll talk about that you just can't do. And that's understandable. Right. So this is really for folks who, have the mobility presently and the abilities to be able to implement some of these life changes. And I know there's other things you can do if you are, if you have a disability. There are certainly other things you can do. There's thinking, triathlon, there's like Olympic activities for folks. These guys and gals are way stronger than I could ever hope to be. I just wanted to caveat that out here, but we need to be practicing physical fitness because there's a mind-body connection here. That is a critical part of this. Have you heard stories about a married couple they've been married for 50 plus years? They're old. One of them dies, sadly, because that's, what happens when we get old. One out of every one person who eats organic will die.
It's true.
It's science fact. Yeah. There's a guy trying to be immortal on LinkedIn. I've seen him. I'm like, man, I applaud your efforts, but dude, just give it a few more years. You might last 10 more years, but you will die, my friend. But the reality is that our mind body connection is so strong that in these loving relationships, when one spouse dies, like, there's statistics, like within a year, the other spouse does too. So that's a really important thing. And again, when we're exercising our bodies, like, even if it's like a treadmill, if you can get on the treadmill or even go outside if you don't have one, not everybody has a treadmill. I'm blessed that I do. And especially in the winter seasons that we get here. But if you can't, like, go outside or jog in place or something like that, like, if you can create that habit where even 3 times a week, I recommend like 4 to 5, but even 3 times a week, if you can spend, 20 to 30 minutes moving and breaking a sweat, I am confident that your mindset will change radically. Something really interesting will happen if you're like me, where you didn't really care about yourself. How much harder is it to care about others, right? Something magical happens, and scientific, right? If we want to get in the minutia, that where it actually creates more empathy in your life for others, because you're like, dang, I feel good. Dang, like, man, I'm glad to be alive today. Like my boss asked me that today at our one-on-one. How you doing? I said, it's a good day to be alive.
Yeah, well, that's like one of the things I wanted to kind of touch on. You mentioned this, you don't exercise, you wake up late, you're grumpy, you're in a bad mood. That mindset, it carries everybody throughout the day. It carries with you throughout the day. We've been dealing with this thing recently with my kid. He wakes up screaming, yelling, just mad about something. He's 8, so how kids are. So that interaction, it influences our mood for almost the entire day. Like it just starts the day in an awful spot. And when you're a professional and you go, especially something like with us where relationships are so important to get our work done, and you go into work, you start the day in a miserable mood, or somebody does something to you didn't like, the first thing you say, oh, that jackass, I hate that guy. He's always doing this one thing or that. But you can't get your work done when you take that mindset, especially in software. It's just inherently collaborative, right? And assuming positive intent is so important because people do things, all the time. It's just like, you hear so many horror stories about UX designers, product managers, engineers just never getting along. And when you go into the office with that mindset, because you woke up late, because you stayed up late, because you were watching TV, because you were on your phone and you didn't get a good night's sleep or whatever, it really does change your job, your relationships at work, and how effective you can actually be as a designer. I don't think a lot of people realize that.
Absolutely. You're absolutely right. Like this job requires good communication. I'd say great communication. Working with folks who are different than you, working with folks who do different things than you, that is a really critical part of the job. And if you're coming into work grumpy and moody and always complaining, like about everything, like it's a bad look. It's not, and especially, from a design perspective, I'll say, for our profession, it's not a good look for our profession. I mean, there's so many people that have this is a loose analogy, but I used to freelance when I, was in between jobs. Before I even had a job, I was freelancing a lot. And, it's sort of like one of those things where there's always somebody, one of your clients that's like a little weary. They're a little leery to hire you because they had a really bad experience with another designer that ended up just taking their money and not doing what they promised. Right. So it's that similar. I mean, obviously it's not just in design. You can get that. I see next door stories all the time about contractors are famous for this, the fly-by-nighters, right? But I mean, it's sort of one of those things too. It's like we need to protect our profession, and we need to be professional. And that all comes, I always say it, and it's right on my website, on the User Defenders website. It says, being a great designer begins and ends with being a great human.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I love that.
For all of the reasons that we're talking about, all these reasons, it has to start there. And, I heard something today on a message I was listening to, it's like some people bring joy wherever they go. Some people bring joy whenever they go.
All right. So I want to talk a little bit about, just like, how do you do this? Like, I mean, it's all well and good to talk about it. And, if it was easy, we would all do it, right? Everybody would just do it and it would be easy, just like we'd all be exercising. But obviously it's not, or obviously there are people having trouble with it. I want to talk a little bit about some ways that you have found to make time for yourself, before you make time for others.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, waking up early. That is the best. That is the best place to start. And for you, it might not be 5 o'clock in the morning like me.
God,
for you,
5
it might be.
Man.
I know that's early, right? I don't know if that's early or late. No,
I never do that, dude.
but I mean, Tim Cook, Jeff Bezos, like some of these really successful people, they wake up at 4:30 in the morning. Right. So it's like, wow, that's even like a half hour, less than what I wake up at. But some people, it might be like, I'm going to wake up at 6. Some people it's like, for me, 7 o'clock is good. And it all depends on, your environment, right? Like you might have a situation where, your family, like they are leaving, like maybe your wife or your husband is taking the kids to school at 7. And maybe that's the time where you do get that alone time where you can fill your cup. Right. But I mean, honestly, I just like with anything, start small, because we shy away as humans. It's just in our DNA, like it's in our nature. We shy away when we set these audacious goals for ourselves, and then we miss. Right. So like there's the whole like gym analogy too. Like it's funny because we just made January with this interview of 2024. And I have a feeling that there's some folks listening right now who were gung ho on January 1 to get into to get a gym membership.
Yeah,
they went in, they got the deal, they got the gym membership.
Prepaid 6 months because it was
prepaid.
cheaper.
You got, yeah. So you've already got skin in the game, but then you're sitting here and it's like, holy crap, I've only been to the gym once, or twice or whatever. It's like, and that's that they're counting on it. They're counting on that's the best, most lucrative time of the year for gyms. It's just in our nature to set these audacious goals and then to be disappointed in ourselves when we don't do it. So chip away, start small, and again, it could be just running in place. If you don't have a treadmill, run in place, or if it's like a blizzard outside, just run in place, do some stretching in the morning. And that's it. Like just start with like 10 or 15 minutes. That's totally doable. And then what happens is you're going to want to do more. The better you feel, the more you're going to want to do it. It's a habit that you are creating, a habit loop, right? That you're creating at this point. And that's really honestly like push goals. Set a push goal. If maybe your goal is to lose 50 pounds in 6 months, that might be too aggressive. What if you said, I want to lose like 10 pounds in the next 6 months? What if you started there, right? And then then you reverse engineer that, right? Like if that's like your goal, what are the push goals that'll get you there? And you don't need to go. There's so many people whose pockets are fat, like nutritionists and diet people and trainers whose pockets are fat from people who don't just do the research themselves. All the information is there for you. All these people are going to tell you is the common sense you already know. Eat less, right? Like just look at your diet, exercise, move more, and sleep more. That's it. That's not rocket surgery.
Yeah, now you said something a little while ago. I want to come back to this, and this is something that I've tried to do, and I'm not always very good about it because I tend to fiddle with my calendar. But you said this: if you don't book your own time, people will book it for you. And when I was at my last company, I'm not lying, dude. Like I would have meeting to meeting to meeting, just like back to back meetings. It's like a wall of meetings. Like when am I actually going to do any work for myself, let alone, actually having a lunch break or walk around the block or whatever. This was back when we, were in an office. But what I started to do was, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 2 to 3, I'm blocking it. That's my time. I might do work. I might read a book. I might do something. I might take a break. I might go exercise. But if you don't block that time, like you said, somebody else is going to block it for you. And I think that's like a small little thing that helped me out a lot was just scheduling time. And I actually called it workout. So when I see the invite come in, I'm like, I don't know, every once in a while, it makes me feel bad because I'm not actually working out, but like if I have a meeting, I'm like, okay, I'll skip it today. I probably shouldn't do that. I don't know. That's probably a bad habit I have, but booking your own time, man, because people are not going to respect your time if you don't tell them,
Absolutely. That is really important. And, maybe most of us get a lunch break, right? A lunch hour or whatever, or half hour even. Like it's something that is already expected. Like just plan on like reading a book or, or going for a walk with some friends from work. And I have an empathy challenge that I started on the show, and it's funny. It's called 7 Weeks to Strong Empathy. And a lot of these a lot of what we're talking about, they're steps in this process of building empathy. Because really that's what we're trying to do as designers, right? Is we want to empathize with our users the best we can and care about them. But these are some things that you can do. And one of the challenges, I was just looking through it today because it's been a while since I've reflected on it. One of the challenges is invite a coworker that you don't have anything in common with, invite them out for coffee, buy coffee or lunch. And just dig in and like get some, just like get to know these folks, like that's a really great way and an easy way to build empathy. You're already going to go to lunch at some point, possibly. Just do that. And then again, it has to be somebody not on your team, not somebody you talk to every day, but somebody in a different department, right? And especially somebody who is doing different things than you are. It's a great way to really be curious and to learn more about that person. And that's what we're doing as designers, right? Like we are designing for people who are not like us. So it's good exercise in that way.
Oh, yeah. I love that. Like a little mental exercise. Yeah, I love that. Something else I want to talk to you about too, and this is something I think a lot of junior designers may be falling into this trap. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on how you've kind of overcome it over the years. But a lot of the stuff that we're talking about, it takes a lot of self-control, right? And a lot of self-discipline to find the time to do these things. And often, I think junior designers, they'll take on all the work. Like, hey, I need you to do something. Okay, I'll do it. And at some point, we have to start saying no so that we can take care of ourselves. And I'm curious, how do you end up getting to the point where you could start saying, you know what? No. And feel good about it. But, well, what's the right word to say that? Not like feel good about saying no. I think not feel bad about saying no. I think that's something that a lot of people really struggle with. So I'm curious, like, how did you learn to get to that point where you're able to push back a little bit and save that time for you?
I love that question, Jeremy. There is so much power in no. So much. There's so much freedom in no.
Ooh, I like that.
I say no way more than I say yes. And it took me a while as a recovering people pleaser to actually come to that conclusion that, like I love what Derek Sivers says. He says, if it's not a hell yes, it's a no. And I think all this hustle culture is just a bunch of BS.
Yeah, I'm with you, man.
Like I'm not going to name names, but there's people out there on LinkedIn and influencers that are just hustle. Like I had a wine business and now I'm, an influencer and I never sleep and I never, it's like, okay, well, what's your life really like? If you're being honest,
behind the scenes. Yeah.
How are your kids? Like, how do you ever spend time with your kids, with your family? Right. Like, how do you ever make time for the things that are important? You may be a millionaire, but guess what? Your wife left you, your kids hate you. Who's going to be there when you're on your deathbed?
Yeah. Who are you going to enjoy that money with? Right. Yeah.
Yeah. That's really important. What matters in the long run?
Yeah. I saw somebody say something recently. I can't remember if it was a tweet or something on LinkedIn, but their job or their plan for themselves is to not make more money, but to have more time, so like get to a point where I have more free time. Like I'm going to take on work, not because it's going to make me more money, but because I can charge more so that I have more free time, Like I'm going to start charging more per hour so I have more free time and I'm going to make the same amount of money, but spend less time doing the work, spend less time making the same amount of money. And like, to me, that's like, it's like got a certain level. I've got bills I have to pay. I have a certain minimum I have to meet, I can make a little bit extra than that. But the more I make is the less time I get to spend doing the work. I make the same amount of money at the end of the day, and that's kind of been my goal. Like since recently getting laid off, it's like finding the consulting jobs. Like I can say, all right, here's X amount of dollars an hour. Yeah. I only need to work 15 or 20 hours a week and make what I was making before.
Right.
I don't want to work 40. I want to work 20. I want to work 10 and make the same amount of money, and I can go get my kids early, go volunteer at their school, serve lunch and do all that other fun stuff with the class parties. But there's so many people out there that, they're just hustle. And then you're right. Like, is it worth it?
It's not. I mean, here's the thing. Like, I am going to empathize too with folks starting out. It is hard. I totally understand. I mean, it's been nearly 30 years now for me, but I remember how hard it was to get my foot in the door. It took me 2 years after, my aha moment with a website, my first, personal website with 100 animated GIFs on it. I remember just like thinking like, I need to do whatever I have to do. Like, we're scrappy. That's what I love about, especially about designers and engineers, like we're scrappy, man, and we'll figure it out. We will, So like when you're just starting out, sometimes you do have to burn the candle at both ends. I totally get that, right? Sometimes you do have to take on free work to get a portfolio. That kind of sucks, but you know what? You got to be gritty too. So it's that funny balance, right? Where it's like, you still have to, and over time, like when you do get more established and people do start seeing your work and start appreciating and realizing what it is you're capable of. It's that funny balance where you need to set healthy boundaries, but you also still need to stay gritty. Because I think, as a species, as a human race, like we've become really soft. There's no way we could survive what our grandparents did, like in the Great Depression, right? Or great grandparents, whatever. There's no way we would die. We would all die within a week.
Oh yeah, dude.
Or, or a month even. Like
zombie apocalypse, I'm dead. No way I'm surviving that. My grandparents, they would totally survive a zombie apocalypse, man.
Right.
Not me.
We're not equipped, man. And so I think it's not to get doomsday, or anything, but we're living in really unstable times right now. Like with rumors of wars, with all the global tension and things. Like this is another reason to take care of yourself, is because you may be in a situation. We may be in a situation one day, where we really do need to be able to take care of our, of whoever's with us, with our family, whoever, our neighbors. Right? Like we may be in a situation where we need to, haul a water barrel up a hill. These are all important things. I told you this, in the pre-interview, I told you a story about how when I first moved here to Colorado, again, after not taking care of myself, not exercising, still trying to adjust to the altitude here. I remember like I saw a car broken down on the side of the road, and it was this person who was just in his car and nobody was helping him, and he wasn't blocking traffic. And, and this, like, it always gets my heart always gets the better of me, where like, I want to help you. I want to help you. By God, nobody's helping you. I'm going to do it. And so I pulled my truck over to the side of the road. I got out and this guy was driving. He had to steer the car. And so guess who had to do most of the work? This guy.
Oh, yeah.
And I was able to get him moved out into a parking lot. It was actually going uphill too, which was really sucked. But I was able to help him, to get there. But guess what? I nearly had a heart attack after that. I'm not kidding. It took me 5 minutes at least to catch my breath. And that's when I realized it's like, man, we got to be fit for service. We got to be. We never know. You never know when you're going to need to help somebody. And I think about here's kind of another sort of tangential lesson from this is love is a far greater motivator than fear. That's the truth, isn't it? Because we will do things without even thinking about it out of love more than we will out of fear. And I think about 9/11. That's a perfect example. Not only all of our brave, servicemen and women, and the fire department and the police folks responding, first responders, but there were also a lot of stories that came out of that of normal, everyday people who were immediately filled with passion to help anybody and everybody they could. And there's a story of the guy with the red bandana. And that's worth a Google, folks listening. And this guy, he was kind of a nobody, but his dad was like a first responder. He was training to be a fire department. He was a cadet, so he had already some of that instinct in him. But man, he kept going and helping people. He's like, I know the way out. You couldn't see anything in some of these offices. It was pure smoke. And he's like, I know the way out. And he would like lead people out, and he would like help people down the stairs, and he would come right back up and keep coming right back. There's more people to help. There's more people to help. There's more people to save. Like, man, that's love. That's motivation of love, no fear.
Oh yeah, absolutely, man. So I think, again, going back as designers, I feel like that's the kind of stuff, we feel so strongly about things. We will fight with a product manager to get that button in the exact spot, or
yes, we will
fight with an engineer because the padding was wrong or the color wasn't just right. And I think that's just an intrinsic value or trait that as designers, I think a lot of us at least we often tend to have. Sometimes it might be a little bit of ego, but I think often it's us wanting to help users and that kind of thing. And this whole idea of just taking care of yourself, like to me, it's just a beautiful thing. Like I love how, you call this out as coming from a place of love, I have one more question. I'm curious. You get up at 5 a.m. and that begs the question, like you got to go to sleep on time, right?
Sure.
So how do you go to bed at a certain time? Because I will be honest, dude, like I got the phone in my hands or the TV is, or my laptop. Like luckily we don't have a TV in our bedroom, but the stupid laptop, we pull up Netflix on my laptop or something, but there's always a distraction. And I'm curious, how do you get to a point where you're like, to get 8 hours of sleep? I'm not good at math. That's what became a designer. What is that? Like you got to get to bed at 9 o'clock or something. How do you do that? What's your routine like before you go to bed? Do you have a secret to getting up at 5 a.m.?
Yes. I love this question, Jeremy. I appreciate you asking that because sleep is another really, really important part of this. There's been studies done on sleep. The fact that a lot of folks get way less than even 6 hours of sleep a night when recommended as 7 to 8, as you just touched on.
Guilty, man. I'm so guilty.
Did you know that somebody who consistently gets about 5 hours of sleep a night only or less, they're operating like someone who's just had 3 beers the rest of the day? That's scary and dangerous and unfortunate. So sleep is critical. One of the things that you touched on as well is the blue light from our devices and TVs. Kudos to you for not having a TV in your bedroom, because there's the association that happens like, oh, this is where I watch my show on Netflix, right? And that TV is emitting a lot of blue light and that unhealthy. So what that's doing, any sort of light source is doing to you is it's actually affecting your melatonin levels, receptors. And we need melatonin. It's what tells our bodies we're tired. Our brains produce it. So what's happening when there's lights on? Electricity, God bless electricity, we need it. But what it's done is it's really caused us to stay awake much later than we normally would. Again, in our ancestor days, they rose when the sun came up and they went to bed when the sun went down, just like my chickens do. Every night. They're really good about it. So definitely recommend. Don't be on your devices, your phone, your laptop, your TV, at least 1 hour before bed. At least. 2 hours would be optimal, because again, even your skin receptors, like if there's a light on in the bedroom, your skin receptors are picking it up. And it's telling your brain, it's crazy. Our bodies are so intelligently designed. It's telling your brain, oh, it must be daytime. I should probably be awake right now, right? Take all the lights out, take all the lights off. If you can get blackout curtains, that's super helpful as well. I use a mask, as dorky as that seems or whatever. Like, I don't care. Only my wife sees me at night. And I got these things. They're like bug eyes. They're like, I spent way too much money on them too, but I can't sleep without it now. It has been instrumental in simulating darkness for me, even if my wife is reading a book, while I'm trying to fall asleep. Those are really, really helpful things. And then here's the other thing. We are all, most of us are caffeine addicts, especially in the product development, design. We love our caffeine, man. I'm a huge fan. I roast coffee at home here. I'm spoiled. Right. So I love coffee, but I make sure that I don't have any more caffeine after 9 or 10 a.m. in the morning. I'm done. I don't have any caffeine, and that's it. I'm done.
I'm on my third cup already. It's only 2:30.
That's the thing. And so again, if you wake up a little bit later, then you have a little bit more grace there. If you're not up at 5. For me, it's like, I know I'm going to be up at 5. So I got to do this. So I highly recommend just really be mindful of your stimulants, of your caffeine intake. And it's got like a 10-hour half-life or something like that. So again, I'm not good at math either. That's why I'm a designer. But there's something to the effect of it's going to, if you go to bed at 10, you really shouldn't have any coffee past 2 or 1 or 2 even. So for me, again, no stimulus. It's a self-control thing. My wife, bless her, she compliments me a lot on my self-control. Like there can be a cake. I love cake. I love milkshakes. I love all of the sweets.
Oh man, I have no self-control, man.
I just say no. It is hard. Don't get me wrong. But like, I just think about kind of what that means in the future. There's a whole, James Clear's Atomic Habits book is incredible. Highly recommend that for really learning a lot about healthy habits and things and how to create them, how to break unhealthy ones. It's incredible. So the reality is that when you are creating good habits, you're kind of paying the price now, right? For good outcomes later. When you have really unhealthy habits, you're reaping the rewards now for significant consequences later.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's the trade-off, right? And so for me, like, how do I do it? I think about like how much better my day is going to be the next day. And it really motivates me to get to bed early. I'm a stickler. Like my wife will tell you, I got to be to bed by 9:30 at the latest. It doesn't always happen. Things happen. I got small children.
Yeah.
You have to focus on what you can control. But for me, it's just thinking about like just how much better my day is going to be when I do start it off the right way and fill my cup first.
Yeah. I'm so bad about going to bed. That's my thing. Like that's my one, like, I don't know what you might call it. My downfall. My downfall will be me staying up late because, I freelance. I have this consulting stuff that I do. I'm writing a book. I have this podcast. I make it a point to release an episode every single Tuesday. And if Monday comes around, like yesterday was a good example, I didn't start mixing the episode until like 1 p.m. because I had a bunch of other stuff going on. And I'm like, I am doing this thing, And so that's just like my thing. And I know there's so many junior designers, especially out there, career shifters, people who are just starting out that like might not have side hustles or whatever. And they just stay up late and, I don't know, but that's like my thing. That's my thing. And I'm so bad about that. And my wife is always on me and, I don't know. I don't know when I'm going to learn it. I'll probably learn it the hard way. I'm sure I'll learn it the hard way, but yeah.
And, and when you're younger too, honestly, when you're younger, you're more resilient. It is easier.
It's funny because I used to be, like you mentioned, because I used to be able to stay up late all the time. And I used to do freelance and stuff back in the day. And I'd be up all night working, and now if I stay up late, if I get 4 or 5 hours of sleep, which happens more often than I like to admit, I feel sick the next day. It's like I have a cold, like my head will hurt, my nose will be congested, it's like when I stay up late, like my body is telling me like, hey man, this ain't right, like you got to get some sleep, and I don't know, younger people listening, they might not feel this yet, but for me, I've definitely started to experience like physical symptoms of staying up too late.
Well, part of that too is that our immune systems are being affected adversely. Our immune systems that are constantly fighting a lot of things happening in our body. We all have cancer. I don't know if there's any listener here that doesn't realize this. We all have cancer. It's just that our immune system is fighting the hell out of it. Now, if we don't get enough sleep and our immune system is suffering consistently, like Reed Hastings would like us to watch Netflix all night. He says that his biggest competitor is not Amazon or HBO, it's sleep.
Oh,
I don't trust a CEO that is trying to kill us. I'm sorry, but I digress. We need to get sleep for our immune system to function well and to not feel like crap and to not feel sick all the time, right? So that we can be fit for service.
Yeah, it's one of those things like you could say this all day long. You could tell your kids this stuff and. You're not going to change your mind until it happens to you, but that won't stop us from trying. So yeah, I love it, man.
Absolutely. Can I give one more hack? I mentioned I have a treadmill and I know not everybody can afford a treadmill. They aren't cheap and they certainly need to be maintained. But even if you don't, again, there's a lot you can do without one. But for me, the smartest thing I ever did was put a TV in front of it. James Clear calls this temptation bundling. I'm doing something that I don't really want to do with something that I really actually do want to do. right? Like, and this is the thing about TV shows. Like, there's so many good TV shows with awesome plots and characters and a lot of episodes. So, the biggest transformation that happened in my life when I first started my personal growth journey was watching Dexter, I think there's like 9 seasons or 8 seasons while I was running. And guess what? I couldn't wait to see what happened next. And so what better motivation, if there's no other motivation, like, hey, this is the time I'm going to see what happens next in this show I really like while I'm running or walking on the treadmill.
Yeah, that's actually really smart. And the irony too is that, as we've all now got these fancy little computers in our hands all the time, like how often are we actually watching TV? Like it's on, but are we really paying attention? And I would argue most of us probably are not. Flipping around on something, reading the internet, scrolling through, doom scrolling through whatever social media app you have, not really watching the show. And when you're jogging, you actually, you're not going to be playing around with your phone while you're doing that, obviously. So, you're going to be watching the thing, paying attention. You're actually getting the experience. So anyway, that's really smart. I love that, dude.
Thanks, man.
All right. So before we get out of here, I have some questions I like to ask my guests to help my listeners get to know our guests a little bit better. But before we do that, why don't you give yourself a plug, let everybody out there know where they can find you and all that stuff.
Yeah, thanks, Jeremy. LinkedIn is the last social network standing. I went on a social network deletion tirade, especially after Mark Zuckerberg started ripping us off, stealing all of our data and selling it without our consent. So that was the first one to go. And then more recently, within the past year plus, actually, it's probably been longer, Twitter was the first next to go. This is before it was X. Before it was actually right before Elon took it over. So I didn't do it because he took it over. I just did it because I just was tired of all the drama and politics and just all the bad inputs coming into my life. So I canceled that. I had a lot of followers too and things like that. So it was sort of like that. Oh, I've worked so hard. I was been on here since 2009 or whatever. But that was the next one to go. And then there was Instagram, and I had dedicated some time to that too. Instagram went. It's like, okay, LinkedIn is the one I'm not going to delete. That is tied directly to my career and my network. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Long story short, LinkedIn is great. Yep. Follow me on there, connect with me, whatever. And then my personal website, jasonogle.com, which you'll find my LinkedIn profile as well as my YouTube. And so far there's only 2 videos there that I made for my heuristic evaluation thing. But that's really the best way to find me, though. I appreciate you asking that.
Yeah, and obviously, User Defenders, your back catalog is still up. So, start episode 1, keep going. Well, you have like 300 something episodes. So you have
there's not that many. There's like probably there's 100-ish.
Was it that?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
There's
I thought there was more than that.
20 or something like that. Yeah.
Right on, man. I love it. Well, yeah. So speaking of social media, I watched The Social Dilemma a few years back. I think that's what it was.
Great.
And I'm not lying, dude. Like as soon as the credits rolled, I went and I deleted Facebook, Twitter, all that stuff.
Yep.
I did keep LinkedIn because, the professional aspect of it. And I feel like it's because it's not anonymous. It's like less jerks. I feel like there are some jerks, but you don't get the trolls like you get on Twitter and stuff. And anyway, I don't know. I'm on LinkedIn. Everybody knows that's like the only place that I post. And I feel like sometimes I'm missing out on Twitter, but I don't know, man. I'm just like, you know what? I can't do it. I'll let other people do it. All right. So, Jason, we've got some questions that I like to ask all my guests to help our listeners get to know our guests a little bit better. First up, what is your favorite non-design book?
Okay. I got to say, it's been the #1 New York Times bestseller forever. So they had to take it off the list. It's the Bible.
Bestseller. Yeah.
So I mean, getting into the spiritual health, for me, that's my spiritual health, man. I need help. Let me just put it that way, beyond myself. And then, beyond that, like I'm an overachiever. I'll probably give you 2 answers to all of these.
That's all right, man.
Mindset by Dr. Carol Dweck. I've mentioned it numerous times on my show, and that book really changed my life in so many ways. Like it's sort of like it confirmed what I already knew deep down, but it articulated it so well. The fact that we can really do whatever we want. We can accomplish whatever we want as long as we fix our mind on that end, to that end, and do whatever, again, like I said, reverse engineering the steps to get there. As long as you realize bottom line, as long as you realize that you can grow and learn whatever you want, and you're not fixed, you don't have fixed traits like so many people for the longest time thought. It was a light bulb moment for me.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, man. Yeah, I actually have an interview coming up soon with Kate Pinkett. She did a talk not long ago about mindset changes and how to
cool.
reframe scenarios and all that stuff. Anyway, I love this stuff. It's such a true thing too, because it's that simple sometimes. I mean, it's easier said than done, of course, but it is, just changing your mindset and just flipping it, negatives to positives and just thinking about them in a different way. It's amazing how our brains work, and you can just solve so much stuff just changing how you think. Like we've been doing this thing with our kids recently, the power of yet, like just adding yet at the end. I can't do that yet. I'm not as good as that person yet. I can't do whatever yet. So I don't know. I just love that kind of stuff, man. Yeah.
I love that. That is totally related. Like every time my kids say, I'm terrible at, or I suck at, or I can't, I always correct them. Like, no, that like the same thing you just said, like just because you can't now doesn't mean you won't be able to, like it's our subconscious is always eavesdropping on our self-talk. And it does inform the way we feel about ourselves and think about ourselves. So self-signaling, I think, is what that's called in psychology.
Yeah, absolutely, man. It's good stuff. All right. What is your favorite non-design podcast?
Again, I'll give you two. One is Darknet Diaries. I've been really enjoying that. It's a tough listen though, because it's related to what I do at work, is open source intelligence. And a lot of it is like dark web. And that's the worst of the worst. So this guy, he basically he finds these stories that are real things that have happened to people, as a result of the dark web and some of these other, cockroach pits. But it's just fascinating because it just reveals, first, not only like just how bad some people can be in the world, but it also helps you stay vigilant in especially your cyber hygiene, your cyber health, right? So that one's really good. And again, it's difficult. Some of it's really difficult to listen to, but, and then the other one, it's kind of related to the health stuff. Like I just recently discovered Arnold's Pump Club. You don't even have to say his last name. Yeah. I don't even have to, you don't even have to say his last name, but it's Arnold Schwarzenegger's podcast. He started, I don't know how long he's doing these. He does them pretty much every day, and they're super short. Wow, okay, they're like between 6 and 8 minutes a piece. And they're just like little bites of like motivation and encouragement and health. A lot of it is very related to what we're talking about. A lot of little health hacks, and they're all researched. Like he doesn't do it himself. Like he's got two guys. They're like major health influencers that do all this research, and they give you like what they're learning. And, it's great. I really like it a lot.
Oh man. It reminds me of, I don't know if you said you were in your 50s. I'm 42. So this might've been after your time. I don't know. But anyway, Arnold was like, he had something to do with the president. Like he was President this was Bush Senior, I think, we were kids. He was like the physical fitness ambassador or something like that. Do you remember that? Anyway, he had the push-up challenge and the pull-up challenge and all that stuff. And I don't know. I just remember watching, like they would put a VHS on in school with Arnold Schwarzenegger, and you had to do all the stuff. It was so funny.
I lived in California when he was the governor. So,
oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, what a time.
The governor.
Only in California.
You know what? The older I get, the more I miss the 80s.
What is your favorite meal? This could be something you've cooked, something your grandma used to cook, something you've had at a restaurant somewhere. Favorite meal?
Barbecue. It's wings, it's ribs.
Ooh, smoked wings,
dude. I put a hurting on it. In fact, next time we meet in person, let's do an eating contest, a wing eating contest, shall we?
Ooh, all right. I'm with you, man. Ooh, I could eat some wings, man. I could throw back some wings.
We could broadcast it for your viewers.
We could do like a Hot Ones challenge.
Let's do it.
At some point, that's my life goal, is to end up on Hot Ones. If I could be famous enough to get interviewed there, that's my goal. But dude, a good smoked wing. Oh man. Heck yeah. Oh, God, I love smoked wings. I could eat some pulled pork. Dude, I tell you what, man, I'm with you.
I'll tear it up.
All right. What is your favorite vacation spot?
It's funny, like Hawaii is always low-hanging fruit, and certainly a wonderful destination, but I got to go with New York City.
Oh man, I love New York City.
Such a cool place.
What's your favorite thing to do? Just hang out, just walk around, grab some coffee or
Just
something?
walking around and just people watching. Like even the street shows are really fascinating. We were there last year. Actually, it's nearly been 2 years now, but we were in Times Square, and it's so funny. Like you just like get drawn into these shows, the street performance. It was cold, man. It was cold, and you got these street performers, these dudes. They're shirtless. They take their shirts off. I'm like, I'm freezing. How can you do this right now? But anyway, it was just fun. Like that's one example. I got brought into the show. They pulled off and they like jumped over me and like 4 other guys in a row.
Oh yeah, like all the gymnast guys and the break dancers and all that stuff. Yeah,
and my kids got a kick out of it, especially when one of the guys spanked my butt really hard.
Watch out, man. Watch out.
They're performing. They can get away with a lot.
Yeah, that's true, man. What are you going to do? Yeah, we used to go back before we had kids, man. My wife and I would go to New York and, just for the weekend. And, we just go and just eat and, go down the list, every ethnicity we could. We've never had that before. Like, I've never had Tibetan food. Let's do that. Or I've never had this, I love New York, man. Now that we've got kids, we have 6 and 8, so like they complain about everything. They don't eat anything. So, if we make it anywhere other than McDonald's, it's just New York with them when they're teenagers, maybe, or I don't know. Maybe I'll wait till they're old enough to stay home by themselves, and then we'll go without them. But all right, man. What is your favorite design tool that is not Figma?
Brain.
Just a brain, just a good old-fashioned brain. I love it.
Brain and intuition.
I think that's the first time anyone has said intuition and brain. But I love it, man. Yeah, that's good stuff. Yeah, I'm with you. It's just the basics, dude, the fundamentals. Just everything you got up there. It's all you need.
If it doesn't work up here, it's not going to work in Figma. No matter how pretty it is.
All right, Jason. Well, man, this was fantastic. Thanks so much for coming on. One more time, what's your website? Let everybody know one more time where they can find you.
Absolutely. Thanks, Jeremy. JasonOgle.com. And find me on LinkedIn. There's a link on my website to that as well. Love to connect. I love to think about this stuff a lot and engage there. And I'm kind of a contrarian, so I will tend to share things even if they're not popular, and even if they ruffle a few feathers. So if you like that kind of stuff, follow me there.
Yeah, there you go, man. Hot takes. Got some hot takes.
Indeed.
Awesome, dude. All right. Well, we'll link to all that stuff in the show notes as well. So make sure you check out Jason. And again, make sure you check out User Defenders if you haven't found it yet. Anybody who's listening to this that hasn't heard User Defenders yet, I don't know what you're doing.
Oh, bless you, Jeremy.
I don't think you're a UX designer until you've listened to User Defenders. But
thank you, man.
But yeah, awesome, man. Thanks again. Really appreciate you coming on, man.
Hey, Jeremy, thank you so much for all you do. You probably don't hear it enough, but I'm sure that the sentiment's there. This is important work, and it is not easy, and it's tireless sometimes, and it takes a lot of effort to do what you do. I'll just be the voice of the audience and say thank you so much, man. Keep fighting on.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, I will keep doing this until my wife tells me to stop. That's it.
It's funny you say that. That's why I stopped. My wife said stop, and I said okay, honey.
Yeah, you're not making enough money. That's why I'm trying to figure out how to make some damn money. So my wife, I can be like, look, at least it's making me money. We'll figure that out. Anyway,
yes.
All right, man.
Hey, the Smartless guys just earned a $100 million contract from XM Satellite. $100 million for a podcast.
Understand.
3 years.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah,
Dude,
that's right.
That's more than NBA.
I need an agent. That's what I need. I need an agent or something, like somebody who can just take a cut, like I'll do all the creative work. I'll be on the creative side. On the other end, you just do the business side and you can take 50%. I don't care. Take your money. Take my money. Just make me something that's better than nothing. All right, dude.
All right. Thanks, brother.
Well, all right, y'all. That's it for Jason and me for today. I hope we helped shed a little bit of light on this idea of taking care of yourself before you can take care of users. Remember, exercise, sleep, eating right, all that stuff. It's not just good for you physically, but it's good for you mentally too. But have you run into any of these problems yet? Have you seen this stuff firsthand? Staying up all night, burning the midnight oil? Is it helping you out or is it actually hurting you a little bit? Let me know what you think on LinkedIn or shoot me an email at hello@beyonduxdesign.com. I'd love to hear from you. If you like what you heard today, don't forget to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. If you feel like you're getting something out of the show, I would love it if you left a 5-star review. That would help me out so much more than you know. And if you know somebody who might find any of this stuff useful, then why don't you tell them about it? That would be fantastic. And if you like what you heard today, don't forget to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. If you feel like you're getting something out of the show, I would love it if you left a 5-star review. That'll help me out so much more than you know. And if you know somebody who might find any of this stuff useful, then why don't you tell them about it? That would be fantastic. One more shout out to Chris for leaving some fantastic feedback for the Beyond UX Design book. Don't forget, if you pick up the book from beyonduxdesign.com/book and you leave some honest feedback, you get a chance to win a shout on the show, just like this, a badass holographic Beyond UX Design sticker, a free book, or even a chance to have a one-on-one with me. So head on over to beyonduxdesign.com/book and use the code LISTENER to get 10% off your copy today. If you want to help keep the show independent and ad-free, check out all those Patreon sponsorship packages at beyonduxdesign.com/support. You can join Chris, Siraquan, Stacy, Radu, Megan, Andrew, John, Mark, and Kevin by supporting the show for as little as $3 a month. And there's some awesome perks like that badass holographic Beyond UX Design sticker. You can get a shout on the show every week. There's even a package to meet with me for 30 minutes every month. So if you've been thinking about signing up for IXDF, now is your opportunity to get 3 months for free and get instant access to the courses, UX masterclasses, and their global UX community. So don't wait. Head on over to beyonduxdesign.com/IXDF, and that discount code will be applied automatically. And when you join IXDF, you're not just learning, you're becoming a part of something bigger. Remember to sign up for the newsletter and check out all the past episodes along with all the show notes at beyonduxdesign.com. I hope you keep coming back for more great UX tips from Beyond UX Design. And until next time, remember, you're more than a designer because there's more to UX and design. I'll see you around. Take care, y'all.